Welcome back to the CCL. Hope you enjoyed your abbreviated break. I know I got some work done. J-Pros was doing all this stuff on the side as well, but we've got a lot of work in front of us because we've got Butler taking on Cincinnati, a battle for placements in the Midwest, searching for either the number 3 or number 4 seeds. Both teams essentially out of the realm of possibility of getting the top 2, but of course seeding will make a difference for that play-in bracket, J-Pros.
Yeah, the difference between 3rd and 4th place can be, whether or not a team ends up playing Humber in the second round, or if they end up playing Humber at all in the entire tournament. And we saw how dominant Humber looked in that previous set, and this 3rd or 4th seed for either of these teams could be massive, moving not only into the play-in but playoffs as a whole.
Yeah, it's a lot of things building up for it, and Butler has been a team that's been a lot of back and forth, but kind of the same storyline actually for Cincinnati as well, as both teams are, again, sitting in that Midwest division at a very, kind of mild-mannered 15-5. Butler had a very strange start to the season, having essentially gotten trounced on by a couple of the bigger, more higher echelon teams. Cincinnati has been kind of back and forth as well. Iowa was in the conversation for a while before they fell off in the Midwest, so again, it's been a very interesting stretch for these teams in the Midwest. I'm remembering specifically back to these teams playing Ohio State and not really even coming close to touching them. So a lot of progress is what we're hoping we're seeing from both these teams as they go head-to-head.
Yeah, and as the first map tonight is Arsenal, one thing we haven't really seen is we haven't seen Cincinnati really play this map that much. So I'm really just to see what they bring to the table. And as the lobby's going to be loading up in about, 10 seconds or so, I think it's got to start here for Butler. Last time, Cincinnati 3-0 sweeps them. Moving on into this one. It's going to be a dogfight.
It's going to be a dogfight indeed. One that Michael Vick, I'm sure, will hopefully be staying far away from. References back to that. It's also a little bit of a cat versus a dog fight as the Bulldogs taking on the Bearcats here. Opening shots from Vortex, nicely found, although a couple of them do hit his teammate, but Cyrus, no problem. He jumps in to find one more, and it looks like Butler will open this rip-off with only losing just 2 players, so they will hold on to this central point very easily. Just comes down to can they sustain the second push. I don't really like the positioning there from Vortex. He had no help from either side, and very easily, and actually way too easily, is Cincinnati able to break that through.
Yeah, but Vortex just tries to overcommit, try to hold the angle with the ICR. I know Grip 2 is basically a laser beam, but still, when you have players flooding you from all different sides, Cincinnati just breaks in so easily. And they've honestly given up the back. There's going to be one player, Johnny Ice, trying to get spawns for his team. He will pick up Hildy, so that should give them new spawns, but he's going to face a lot of pressure coming in the front.
It comes down to these rotations that you're seeing on your map right now. Johnny in the back line will be doing what he can to hold off and make sure these spawns are in play, and Henley is able to actually help out with that as well. So Butler looks like they have at least some control of the back, but you can see Cincinnati is working their way in, and Unshocked is able to actually make things interesting as 4 players from Cincinnati are working around that left-hand side of the minimap. That's where you want to be for the spawn. So as we had a tie game for a small second, Butler has to be able to hold off this back push, and actually they do a good enough job to make sure that Cincinnati does not spawn close by, and in fact, Butler will actually retain possession of the spawn, so now the second hit all comes from the front. Syra able to just put down 1 clip into 2 players, and that will be enough for Butler to hold on to the second push through.
And I really like this adjustment right now out of Butler. Vortex recognizes, okay, in the next couple of hills, the ICR might not be as prevalent, puts it away, pulls out the Maddox, and he gets into a lot more scrappy gunfights that he's less likely to win with the ICR, but more so with the Maddox. That's just one adjustment I think that's really helping Butler at this moment.
Yeah, and that's really smart for an AR player to know when exactly that ICR will come into play versus when you need to pull automatics, like you mentioned, to push and get a little bit more aggressive. A lot of trading happening back and forth as we are opening up our 3rd hard point by the Jet statue. So far, Cincinnati's in control of the point, but you can see Butler is working their way around the right-hand side of the map. At least they were trying to. But Mark able to pull out that ICR and keep that long-distance suppression coming through. So Cincinnati in possession of the spawns. All 5 players are up and here ready to contest this front hit from Butler. This comes down to can Butler use anything to break on in. Concussion over the top. Won't actually hit anything. He gets concussed in return, but looks like there will still be enough pressure for Butler to move on in, contest the point, and start to scrap their way through. But unfortunately, Unshocked able to do what he can to take down 2. Butler still trying to contest, but against Cincinnati with the close spawns.
Yeah, and Hensley doing everything he can just to hold on to this time. 2 players for Butler are going to get this remaining 10 seconds, but 3 players are going to be going for this rotation towards gun side. What's really important, I think, about this hill is making sure not only you have control of it, but you have control of it from the right side. And Slash and Knives and Butler recognize they want to hold on to it so that they can get the easy rotation to that 5th point.
Split spawn, though, coming through for Cincinnati. 2 players from old, 2 players from over by the weapon testings bay. Can Butler read this correctly? Nobody is spawning at the moment, so they have no idea where the spawns for Cincinnati are, and looks like the pinch maneuver will be good enough for a clean wipe. Now it's up to Cincinnati to try to figure out where exactly Butler was spawning at, and can they turn to accept it? So far, a very close game. Unshot will lock things down over the middle. A very smart play to position himself there as he's able to lock down that window by himself and gain information. Butler still fighting back, though. Just comes down to the mad dash off the second respawns, which Cincinnati will spawn closer, and they will be here to recharge their defense.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that was a little bit of a misplay, Cincinnati, is they get the kills, and instead of pushing the respawns, they just kind of hold in. That allows Butler to get the preferred spawns for this 5th point. And as we see, Hensley is recognizing they're trying to get onto these spawns in the back robot area, and he's just trying to push back and make sure they're solidified for Butler.
But it's still being contested, and Unshocked is able to at least find one more. He gets the information to his teammates of what's going on in the back, but Yaz not able to do anything with it. So now it just comes down to Butler. Can they actually hold down to this point, as Cincinnati will have to hit from the front? Still scrapping and trading back and forth as we get a pinstripe kill feed for a moment there. But after all is said and done, Cincinnati do have the numbers close by, but again, Butler will be spawning close, so they will get all 5 back a little bit sooner. Just comes down to who can win the trades on the interior of the point. Sire does have a grab slam that would be nicely found for this point, but it does not even look like they're going to necessarily need it, as there's only 2 players left for Cincinnati who are able to hold on, and Cincinnati likely actually with that will actually get the spawns on the back side. So Butler will spawn all the way out, forcing them to essentially get one more hit at this or forfeit it completely just to play for the middle. It looks like they're going to have to forfeit, but they do push in a couple of players. So with this comes punishment from Cincinnati, and all of a sudden they can string together 2 straight points.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking if you're Butler right there. You have the early rotation, you have the spawns, and it just get broken so quickly. I really thought Torreira was going to opt to use the gravity slam and maybe make something of the situation, but he doesn't. And now Cincinnati has the easy rotation to first. P. Hildy just trying to hold on to it for his squad right now.
Again, just back and forth we go, still in contest for the moment. You see, though, starting to win out some of the gunfights for those lingering Butler defenders that were there. They're still not 100% sure where the spawns are coming from, though Hildy and Mark are able to do a pretty decent job of locking things down by those double doors, which is where the hit is actually coming from. One more player here is Slash and Knives. He's getting a lot of gunfire thrown his direction, though he's able to live through it and find 1 kill. And now, all of a sudden, Butler has swung the point around. Cincinnati looking for more of an exterior defense. Gets punished for it, and so Butler will be able to get an extra 17 or so seconds before we have to make the rotations, which Cincinnati is already trying to lock down. But again, for King Ray, I would like to see him push a little bit further over towards the right. Now that he's got teammates with them, they are spawning right on top of him, actually, so they will secure the spawns, but they're going to have to do it again, as Butler will be coming out of this point, and looks like they're looking for a full wrap on the second hard point.
Yeah, and if Cincinnati really does feel like it, King Ray does have that Tempest ability, Hildy does have that War Machine available, plus a couple of streaks in the back pocket, does call in the Hellstorm and not find anything, but still a little bit of zoning, a little bit of information for them, and a 40-second potential swing in their favor.
Just comes down to winning the back, and they will do it. King Ray actually just spawns right as that gunfight was won by Hildy. So now with an opportunity for Cincinnati to start to run away a little bit with this. Sire's doing what he can to sit there, and he will be taken down. And now it just comes down to the rotation fight. This has been one of those spots that Cincinnati has been okay at, a little bit hit or miss. They had a good rotation from 2 to 3 last rotation, which they will actually give up about 16 seconds of time here, but Butler has committed a lot of resources to making sure they get this scrap back. So Cincinnati should get here first. I say that, but Vortex was the only player here to even contest it. He wins out 2. So now all of a sudden Butler does have position to at least get the early time. They are going to have to fight for spawns, though, and this is where I would start to say you need to start using this specialist if you're Butler.
Yeah, Hensley does pick up a pair of kills and does have that War Machine available. Looks like they're going to pop it. I'm not sure if he sees... Okay, that was their trophy. That's 2 kills in favor of Hensley. 1 more looking for Ray. And Ray does pull out the Tempest there, but still the Lightning Strike comes out of Hildy, picks up 3.
Gotta win this fight, though, if you're Mark. He's only able to trade away 1. And again, the spawns were not 100% secured for Cincinnati, so they are spawning a little bit further out. Butler will be throwing all 5 players towards the hill once again. Slash and Knives in a very powerful spot here on the Jet statue. TAC 5 also utilized for this hold. I do like the call because, again, Butler needs to wait to start to work their way back through. And again, not having the spawns, the extra HP is very much so appreciated. But now it's up to the rotation. Again, Butler doing a good job. They will secure the rest of this time. It comes down to these front 4 players. Can they hold off the early surge from Cincinnati? That'll do nicely from Hensley to start things off in their favor. Johnny Ace also able to find one. Now Mark Can he start to turn things back? No, he won't. This is full value for Butler as they have 4 players still on the hill themselves, and Cincinnati are left rotating all around the map.
And that's a big kill right there for Butler. Markler uses his vision pulse right there. That's an incredibly hard specialist to get, especially after today's update, based solely off of score. He's effectively neutralized the vision pulse and will probably not get another one unless for some reason he goes off.
Looking for a way to lock down this ramp is Hensley. Will find one. Looking for a second. Will he get an opportunity onto King Ray? Slash and Knives coming to research from the back. The respawns, again, are still pretty close. It's a pretty 50-50 fight for both teams, to be honest, as both spawns are relatively equidistant from the point. But UC will come back through. Butler has put themselves in the lead at 2-0-1, but Cincinnati will come right on back to find 198 of their own. Nice grapple to get involved is Sir Aaron, but not able to find a chance yet to use this grab slam. But again, what are you waiting for? He's been left with a couple of good opportunities, but isn't pulling the trigger on it yet. Maybe he's looking for the win condition. Here's Hildy with the War Machine. Will take down one. And again, now that you're likely not going to be able to get yourself into the spot to find 2 of those specialists in their map, you're probably only looking to kind of bait out potential flak jacket switches and things of that nature to get full value out of your War Machine and the likes. Johnny Ice, nice little over-under play to get himself involved. And it looks like Butler will put themselves in control of the hill for now. Cluster Nade will find 2, so that will actually hold back the push from Cincinnati again.
And Serrero, like you mentioned, has been holding on to this grab slam so long. Potentially could see the usage right here just to try to clear out the remaining of the hill. Serrero does get shut down, however, and so it looks like Cincinnati is going to hold on to this hill. If you're Butler right now, do you try to push the scrap, or do you just try to hold on for
No,
new?
Absolutely not. They tried this the last time, and it did not work out for them. Cincinnati will get an opportunity to rotate out with 13 seconds. This is not a win condition for Butler, and you have to figure for Cincinnati, you have to set up yourself nicely for the middle, but they're not able to quite do it. Mark is the only player really here to contest, and he's sitting in the vent at the moment. Sir Aaron playing for a lingering little flank play, but he goes just a bit too quick. So he gets punished, and all of a sudden there's numbers for UC just in the nick of time. 241 is where it stalled for Butler. They're going to have to break through. This is still win condition for Cincinnati on this hill as well.
Slash and Knives does use that vision pull, so Butler does know where Cincinnati is, but still, they just can't find a way to get any pressure. Sir Aaron uses the grab slam, and I don't believe found anything.
But Cincinnati will hold. Now it comes down to King Ray. He's the next closest to Specialist. The Tempest is nearby, unshocked as well. One more bit of score will put him in position to potentially get the grab slam, but will not be able to quite get a chance to use it here. Now we'll use it on the front door. We'll shut things down. 241, 241. Still counting up for UC. Hensley with the War Machine fading away. He needs to contest, but King Ray jumps the window on him. So all of a sudden, 249, and nobody from Butler can get there in time. Cincinnati will just narrowly hold on, but what a scrappy fight. 241 to 250. A very close battle between these Midwest teams.
And I honestly think it comes down to Serrera not opting to use the grab slam just a little bit earlier on that 5th point. A couple players in the hill, gets at least 2 of them, plus potentially the hell break and all that time. This game was in Butler's control at the end, and I think just a couple of misplays threw it away.
Again, I think back to the first rotation with that late, about 20 seconds left, that hit onto that lobby conference room area, Hardpoint, and that kind of gave them away from being able to rotate quickly into the middle. And you're talking about mere seconds. That could have been one of those areas that the difference could have been paid off there if they just set themselves up for the middle hold instead, but that's not the case. So we are dealing with, again, Butler not quite able to do it yet with this, and well, it's kind of tough, I would say, to figure out what exactly went wrong because there were so many different instances. You look at Sir Aaron, though, and Hensley doing a good job of holding things down for their team, but again, you take a look, this is a very even battle between them score-wise and damage differentials, just about even between both teams, with the exception of Yasmino, who did not have the greatest game.
Well, we finally see a little bit of how Cincinnati plays Arsenal, and it looked a little shaky at times, but somehow they managed to get a little comeback. And Butler, I honestly, just a couple of misplays, realistically, that threw away this map. But if you're Butler, can't really be looking at this. Got to be thinking about the next couple maps in the series. You know, this is a battle for 3rd or 4th. And, yeah, if you're Cincinnati right now, you got to be feeling pretty good for yourself. You're up 1-0 in the series. You got an Arsenal Search and Destroy coming up next, which I believe was one of their better maps previously in the season. So if you're Cincinnati, you're feeling pretty good right now.
Yeah, I mean, it was a scrappy fight, like we mentioned. I hesitate to use the same adjective over and over again, but that's the best way of saying. I mean, it came down to a couple isolated gunfights here or there that were a little sloppy in certain instances, a couple of early or late rotations from both of our teams, which is why we're dealing with a very close scoreline. But I mean, I'm trying to put these teams in perspective of what Humber showed up on this map just previously as we had it on stream just before this. And Humber played this map a lot cleaner. And that's the biggest thing that I'm looking for is who can start to clean up and polish themselves as we will be heading over to, like you mentioned, to Arsenal S&D, another map that we could kind of cross-compare to what we saw previously between ULL and Humber. Interested to see if there's going to be any sniper gameplay or if these ARs will just rule the day, as it typically ends up being the case here in Arsenal.
And if I recall correctly from previous matchups, we saw King Ray on the side of Cincinnati pull out that sniper. Seen a couple of some crazy shots coming out of him. But for me, it really comes down to that sniper battle that you mentioned, Vortex versus King Ray. I know Vortex; he's a pretty good sniper. I've seen him play on LAN as well as seeing him play online, and his sniper shot is incredible. So it really comes down for me is who's able to win that sniper battle. That opening pick can be so game changing for either of those teams. So for me, it's that sniper battle, like you mentioned.
Indeed. And again, Arsenal S&D as we jump in here in a moment. It's going to be a pretty telling tale, I would say. You're hitting some of the stats on the head beforehand, but like you mentioned, I'm just looking for that full five-man force. For both of these teams specifically, again, sitting kind of in the middle of the pack when it comes down to who's going to be there in the play-in bracket. Actually, I think you might even argue that some of these teams would be near the bottom level as far as their power rankings go into the play-in bracket. You need to start showcasing the improvements that we're looking for as we're trying to get like a really good estimation as far as how these teams will do come that play-in bracket this weekend. A lot riding on it, and again, this one, as you keep hitting, it does determine who gets that third seed overall in the Midwest. But if there's more, I think, riding on it than just placement. I mean, third to fourth place, regardless, you still have to make a run through the play-in bracket. Yeah, maybe it gets just a little bit of easier ride if you sit in that third spot, but even still, you'd be going up against a lot of tough opponents.
Yeah, I don't really think anybody thinks that the way through the play-in or even the playoff is going to be an easy road for any of these teams. So just securing yourself, just that little bit of extra help, I think, is really what it comes down to. And this match is that little extra help, I think.
Well, especially when you take a look at, for instance, Butler, Hensley able to put out a very good game just previously. He is one of the biggest carries for this team, just period, between him and Sir Aaron having a good hard point here. We're wondering who will pull things out. Here's Vortex for Butler using the NVIR with the Paladin. Will just narrowly miss the shoulder peak of one of those players just poking from the backside. King Ray looks to also have a Paladin in hand, and Sir Aaron actually finding the big carry that we mentioned in Hensley as a team kill all of a sudden makes things a 3-on-3. Although there is penetration over the middle, but watch out for this flank. Unshocked is right behind it. I don't know if anyone has any idea that this is here. Unshocked will find one. Yasmino with another. It's just up to Slash and Dives, and they can turn for this. Although Unshocked does peak a little bit early, King Ray does still have a sniper rifle, so this challenge gets a little bit more difficult, I would say, for Cincinnati. You can't just face up the 2v1.
Slash and Knives. I'm not really sure what the play is from right now. He's opting to go vents, and I don't believe he does have that objective. So I really like the way King Ray and Unshocked are playing this. They're getting together. I say that as King Ray starts running towards that B-bomb site. This is where things get a little bit dicey. If Slash and Knives is able to find the pick, might be a really tough situation.
Slash, and though, again, just in between both of these players. He does have a frag grenade. Can't imagine we're going to see it here. But he could at least gain some space for it if he tosses it out without it being cooked. He does catch, I think, a shoulder of one player, which he will get the full frontal beat down from Unshocked. Able to hit the trigger just slightly faster than Slash and Knives was able to do. So Cincinnati will start things off with a 1-0 lead.
Hindsight's 20/20 in that situation. The bomb could have been planted, but Slash and Knives just doesn't clutch out the 1v2. I realistically understand the situation, try to go for the kill, but with only 7 seconds left and you still have to plant the bomb with a player you don't know where they're at, I think the safer bet's just go for the objective play.
Yeah, it's just tough to make a call because you don't really have the information on where either player is. You don't know which bomb site is safe. There's a lot of things to consider. And obviously in that instance right there, we weren't able to quite find the full force of what Slash and Knives is maybe able to do if he had better information. King Ray, though, will overlook his team moving towards bomb site B with the Paladin, looking for somebody sitting on this sniper platform. That he will have no contest, although there is a player just over to his left, hiding in the corner. That's Sir Aaron, who will poke out with the ICR. Just take a couple of pop shots just to let you know that I'm here. King Ray will just narrowly whiff on him, though. Looked like it went right over his shoulder by the Tracer. Concussion will slow things down, and can Butler set anything up for the flank? Because of that, Johnny Ice is close to the middle, but waiting for the go call, I think, to hit this flank.
Yeah, and that's a nice pick out of Sorare and eliminate the sniper. Yasmado does pick up that sniper, and so now it's a 4v3 situation. Butler still does have that man advantage, but Vortex finds a pick of his own. Finds a second onto Unshocked. Mark Larn in a tough 1v4 situation.
Yeah, this is a pretty much unwinnable situation. He realized it, wants to head toward the outer portions of the map, but will be caught by a couple of lingering Butler players who did chase him down nicely. So again, both defenses coming through, tied up 1-1.
I'm going to see a nice little kill cam out of Vortex here. He's going to find 2 with this NVIR scope. That's a nice little jump shot right there. Just the second.
That'll play.
Just a second little... Ooh, just a couple pixels peeking that angle, but Vortex able to clean him up.
That will 100% play. So now with the 5-on-5, again, 1-1, everything even. We're not going to likely see specialists for quite some time. Again, if you're just joining in and not familiar with the changes, there is no more development of the specialist over time. It is only based on score. So a little bit more difficult, and by a little bit, I mean nearly impossible to get for most specialists, unless you're absolutely popping off on the search and destroy. Pretty much a raw gun versus gun skill. Johnny Ice will get aggressive and open things up here at B. Vortex just a little bit off with his shot. King Ray does end up falling, though. Meanwhile, from the flank, really good information from Vortex as he checks it just before he goes to meet his team. Johnny Ice here to help. Very smooth play so far from Butler, getting all the info. They aren't quite able to clean things up even further forward of the bomb site, but that's not as super important as the bomb is down. 30 seconds to defend it, and it looks like they have all their angles locked, although Yasmado able to get one mark with an opportunity here. He sees the head, but will be caught out right in the middle of no man's land, and Butler will clean up the scraps, giving themselves the first offensive win.
Butler just played that correctly. Vortex in the back, doesn't get taken out by that flank, gives his team all the information needed. They just hold on, and it's really hard, especially when there's 3 players with the man advantage just holding onto this bomb site. It's so difficult for a player to try to even get close to that bomb site because 3 players can peek him, and who do you shoot at in this instance? You know, it's really tough, especially when you're getting team shot.
A lot of decisions to be made, that's for sure. But regardless, Butler will find themselves with the numbers, which obviously gives those decisions a little bit of an easier choice. 4-1 is Johnny Ice, who did a very good job of, again, just kind of keeping his head on a swivel, helping out from both sides. Slash to Knives still at 3-1. Meanwhile, a couple of players still dealing with 0 kills. King Ray being one of them, again, trying to snipe up against Headslate. And we also have, or pardon me, against Vortex, and then Hildy as well, sitting at 0-3 so far. Here is Vortex holding this back staircase, again with the NVIR scope, just locking down this left-hand side. He does catch a shoulder. At least a glimpse of one to Yasmado, but I think you have to back up here, my friend. Staying maybe a little bit too long, feeling feisty with the strike, but will get around the corner. He does have help here with him, although it was only for a small time, as Slash and Knives, again, is caught out in the middle of no man's land. No cover to him whatsoever, and you would have loved to have seen this flank develop a little bit further more before you were able to actually get the push, but now Sir Aaron, the last player left, he's got 4 players to go through. This would be the full ace if he's able to manage it. Yeah,
one thing to look at, though, is number 9, Yasmado, flanking the flank. I don't think Sir Aaron's recognizes the 1v3 already tough enough without realizing that flank's behind him. Doesn't really matter because Hildy is going to clean him up, and that's another round for Cincinnati.
Really smooth for the offense. It's actually been a mirror matchup, really. Both defenses looking solid, and then both offenses looking solid. So, essentially going tit for tat at the moment. And a lot of, again, just interesting plays. Again, I would have loved to have seen this flank develop a little bit more before the back staircase contested, but communication not quite there. King Ray's shot not quite able to lock on as Aaron finds 2. It'll do nicely, at least for his specialist, as he is getting closer to halfway there. But again, it's one of those situations that it's almost not even worth talking about with the changes that have come through.
Yep, and Butler on the attacking side looks like they're going to go towards this A bomb site again. I wonder if Vortex still has that sniper out. You know, sitting at 2-2. Okay, he does still manage to keep out the sniper rifle. When do you put it away, Shift? You know, when do you think, okay, you're not hitting the shots needed, especially when you're losing a duel like that, which is, you know, the standard duel on this bomb site. When do you put it up?
It's tough to call, really, because even if you're not good to the picks, the pressure of the sniper still brings a lot to it. And a nice concussion and grenade combo there from Cincinnati. Not sure if that was intended, but if it was, that's brilliant. As we get back into it, Mark able to do some shots to get a little bit of the assist category going. King Ray able to find another, so he's had himself a good round here from 0-3 to 3-3. Bomb will also be defused. Cincinnati able to show up with the Paladin, but getting back to your initial question, even if you're not getting the shots with it, it still forces your opponents to consider how they approach the bomb sites. It still gives you that line of sight advantage in most situations. Even if you're getting just hit markers, you are still putting your team in a spot to get information, which is almost more valuable than anything else in Search and Destroy.
Yeah, and the one situation we're seeing, King Ray just seems to be doing all of the sniper. It doesn't matter, close range, long range. If you're King Ray, I think you got to keep the sniper out. But if you're Vortex, if you're not fighting anything with this next round, in my opinion at least, I think you got to try to do a little bit more to contribute to the team.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you would love to have it. An extra actual active gun, I guess is the best way of putting it, like on your team. But if you're finding value, like he did in the last round, you're probably going to get that little boost of confidence that you need to, kind of keep this head-to-head fight. King Ray will not get the early shot. Vortex has actually put the sniper away for now, just opting for an ICR, and he looks like he will be solo holding A, awkwardly enough. It'll actually be King Ray watching A by himself as well. A little trade over the middle, so we're even with the 4-on-4, but the bomb goes down in a very awkward spot.
Yeah, Hildy, I believe, does manage to recover it and is 100 off streak, so if Butler doesn't find the pick onto Hildy, this Search and Destroy could, drastically fall out of their hands.
It would definitely start to spiral, right? I mean, again, with score streaks giving so much value, now that specialists aren't there, and already being up one map, you get Hildy just this extra 100 points. All he needs is a shot, but he's being very passive about how he hits it. There's the lightning strike. Looking for one more. We'll find both. Hellstorm now achieved. It is a 3-on-2. Still have to worry about this round at hand, and you've got the bomb, Hildy, so you need to get that planted. Center area, the last player left alive, as Mark was able to find one, and he's going to have to make the rotation on the tough side of the map coming up the back stairs. You can't imagine that the UC team will give him much room to work with. How about none, as Mark goes to challenge it? Cincinnati now stringing a couple rounds together, up 4-2.
Yeah, I mean, right here, Hildy picking up not only 1 but 2 kills, getting full streaks, gets the bomb down. Not only to the streaks, works closer to the specialist, and this realistically is going to be an incredibly tough situation. Both bomb sites out in the middle of the open, both the Hellstorm and Lightning, doing so much damage in such close, confined areas, such as where the bomb sites are. This Search and Destroy for Butler needs to change rather fast if they're going to make a comeback.
Yeah, for sure. And it just comes down to, again, like, you don't have the ability to get specialists to change the tide. So, we are familiar back from just before Fort Worth, there were all those 1-5 comebacks in the CWL. You're not going to be seeing that nearly as often because of the fact that you're not getting tacit specialist charge. You have to get active, and if you're down that much and getting smoked that badly, you're not going to have that ability to just utilize the game mechanics of specialists to kind of facilitate your comeback. Butler, though, making a rotation through middle, over now to B. Hildy, be very careful with how you're positioning. You need to stay alive. The cluster was not great. He turns his back just as Hensley comes through. And now all of a sudden, Butler has penetrated all the way into the back area of this. This is going to be very difficult for Cincinnati to deal with. It's essentially a mini pitch. Fortunately, Unshocked is able to come through right as Hensley was reloading, so we're left with a 3-on-3, but Butler have a lot of time to play with, 30 seconds until the defuse is no more.
I really like the play of Butler right there, just, a 5-hit mid, something you don't see very often. Johnny Ice does go down on the bomb, so this becomes incredibly tough. Luckily, Slash and Ice does find with the ICR, but King Ray all the way out there.
And not 100% sure what the play was here. Vortex just needs to stay alive just for a little bit longer. I don't think he did, though. So the grenade was cooked, but they challenged it just by line of sight, and that's going to be a defuse. That's a very fortunate round for Cincinnati. Butler misplaying it just a bit. If you're going to play for the frag, play for the frag. If you're going to play for the challenge face up, play for the challenge face up. They do both. They both get caught. Vortex can't stay alive long enough, and now Cincinnati's on map point.
Yeah, that's heartbreaking in that situation. You have the man advantage. You have the better positioning, in my opinion, to defend the bomb site, and all of a sudden, Yasmado makes the play, gets behind Slash and Knives, and it just becomes that much more difficult for Butler to hold on, and they end up dropping that round.
Now what? I guess is the big question. Hildy's got double streak still. They can change the pace of the game very drastically since they are controlling it from the offensive. And again, you take a look for Butler, no tools available to use with the exception of a couple of equipments. King Ray will start things off in favor of Cincinnati with an opening snipe. Hensley, I think, also got tagged. Johnny Ice goes down as Unshocked pushes forward. Cincinnati, the steamroller coming through, able to essentially give themselves the free round here. Hellstorm would come out, not going to make a difference. Mark tracks it down. A very quick search and destroy favoring Cincinnati at a 6-2 scoreline. They all of a sudden, just like that, put themselves on match point up 2 maps to nothing.
Yeah, and realistically, even if Butler does end up winning that round, King Ray picked up a set of streaks for himself. Hildy still had the streaks. You had Specialists coming up. You know, realistically, it's just a tough situation for Butler to even make some sort of comeback there. And Cincinnati gets it done. They close it out, and they're up 2-0 in the series.
Wow. Again, I will just go ahead and say, as a former resident of the Indianapolis area, I am feeling a little let down by my Butler Bulldogs at the moment. Although I did not attend Butler. I'm an IU grad, but regardless, that Indiana pride is taking a little bit of a hit right now at the moment. I was expecting, we saw this team, and this is the biggest thing whenever I get a chance to, we get a chance to catch these guys. I think back to like Utah. We saw Utah very early on in the season on stream. Same thing with Butler. We saw them very early on. Actually, Cincinnati as well. We haven't seen much of them in the midseason. We saw them very early on stream in the early parts of the CCL. And was hoping to see a lot of improvement. And flat out, it's not really quite been there for Butler, at least not as of yet. So, I mean, again, a lot of improvement still needed. You take a look at a couple of those missed rotations that were played, you know, not waiting for the flanks to develop, you know, certain little things like that throughout the entirety. Again, how they were challenging the bomb site, a little almost solo play-ish. Yeah, those are things that you hope to see kind of cleaned up by now as you're getting into the playoffs for teams that want to be major contenders in the CCL playoffs this year.
Yeah, and the one thing to note on the side of Butler, just from the statistical point of view, is just how different it is when it comes down to the way Hensley was playing that map. You know, statistically, He has a 4KD and averages, 157 damage a round. Like, we definitely didn't see that Hensley show up here in this Arsenal S&D. And realistically, if they're going to make a run and play in, they got to have all their players firing on all cylinders all the time.
Yeah. Just wish there was an answer. Wish we could just open up this bottle that, message in a bottle, like, hey, this is the remedy for all of your troubles. But
if only were that easy.
It's if only it were that easy. Exactly. It's definitely a game, especially now that it's 5-on-5, especially too, instead of the 4v4. There's a lot more to consider, a lot more things to look over, not only individually, but how you're playing as duos or trios in certain instances, whether it comes to hardpoint controls or search and destroys. Doesn't make a difference. There's just so many extra considerations, and you have to go through maybe some really kind of tough situations. You talk about, 100 Thieves, a squad that was absolutely trouble at the beginning of the year as far as what they were able to put forward on a competitive front. Now, all of a sudden, they're one of the best teams in the game, but it definitely takes a lot of kind of coming back and getting back to your roots and not being too prideful to turn away criticisms and look at look at things a different way. I mean, especially that, again, there's an extra person on the field, not only for your team, but also for your opponents. There's a lot of other things that your mind has to go through as the rounds definitely get a little bit more hectic.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is that in previous Call of Duties, just having good gun skill could potentially carry you in a map.
Right.
But in 5v5 with specialists, with the way the maps are designed, with just the way some of these game modes ended up playing out, gun skill alone isn't going to win you a lot of these matchups, and we're seeing the teams that have the better teamwork and coordination pulling out these map victories.
Yep, flat out. Again, you talk about individual gun skill. That only gets you so far when an unexpected player comes up from behind you and catches you, with that quote-unquote COD time that we so familiarly hear time and time again.
Kicking off in the control, Cincinnati. Gonna start out with 2 kills, and Hildy going on the side. Slash and Knives doing everything he can to try to hold on. He's still alive in the hills with 2 players, 3 players pushing him. This is going to be a tough situation for Butler to try to break back in.
Where do you go from here, I guess, is the bigger question. If you try to find your way through, progress at A will come in, and it looks like Hensley will be trying to develop a long flank, but I just don't know if it's going to get here in time for it to make much of a difference. He is able to find 1, but again, you have to contest from the front, and Unshocked is able to clean up 2. Progress is coming through. 3rd tick almost there, and All of that just puts Butler completely out of position because now all of a sudden Hensley is caught between a rock and a hard place. He's got players in front of him. He'll be able to clean up his help. And plus one more. Looking for the third. Please don't. Okay, goodness. These people have families, Hildy. You can't just do that to them on stream.
Yeah, Cincinnati just gets the really good setup at the beginning. They get the kills they need. They hold the setup. Sure, a couple of players go down, but it doesn't really matter in the situation because they're trading so effectively. They may only be up 2 lives, but they have so much time to work with, especially with so many players doing so much around the map.
Yeah, it just comes down to you got to pick and choose your fights. I think it's the biggest things. And, well, at the moment, Butler is not picking the correct fights. And Cincinnati's absolutely punishing. Progress starting to come through at B. Will be contested for a small time. The numbers aren't here for Cincinnati. You have to play a little bit patiently here. You've got lives. Don't throw them away. They had a life lead, but both players, Mark and King Ray, went to contest, even though they still had to wait for the 3 players off respawn, and now they're starting to get staggered. Sir Aaron and the rest of the team are here, ready to go, and they do have a little bit of utility to utilize a couple of concussions, maybe a trophy system or 2. You see that kind of glowing on the bottom left-hand side of where their specialist charge would be in their portraits. Nice position here from Slash and Knives. We'll find one. Yasmino still struggling to get his shot online as he had free shots looking over towards those back stairs. Won't be able to quite find him. It almost gets peeled off by Vortex closer on the near side heady. So Yasmino will just back up, wait for his teammates before he recontests. But again, that was a 3-life lead for Cincinnati. All of a sudden, Butler's up by a life.
And I really understand what Cincinnati was trying to do there. They kept getting a couple kills every time they were flooding, so they thought maybe if we stagger enough, we'll eventually, you know, somebody will get a 2-piece or a 3-piece potentially. It didn't end up working out for them. Cincinnati, unfortunately, going to be down in the life lead now, and Butler just needs to hold these angles.
This is tough. I mean, Unshocked was in a good spot, but pushed his aggressive flank before the front hit came through, so he was immediately turned on. King Ray will at least be able to trump on in, but only finds 1. No pressure over the lobby. 9 on 3. Butler should surely hold this with only 23 seconds. And again, a couple of crucial mistakes for both teams. It comes down to the small timings, the small things, and if you go back and rewatch this VOD, I think they'll see Unshocked was in a very favorable position, but over-aggressed it before the hit from the front came from Cincinnati, which meant Butler could essentially turn and trade all day long. Those trades 100% always favor the defense on this map, and so will the first round because of it. And
it's those little mistakes that separate the upper echelon of teams from from those mid tier. You know, a lot of these upper tier teams, they're not making a lot of mistakes. You know, say for example, Ole Miss, we saw them on a seaside control, absolutely flawless. They figured out how the game mode should be played, especially with it being brand new, with new strategies going into it. It's these teams that have taken just that little extra time to figure out, all right, here's what should be done in, you know, this situation or that situation, and it's those teams that are super effective at control. And right now, it just seems like Cincinnati didn't recognize the situation.
Indeed, indeed. But now we go forward into round numero dos. And Butler looks like they will be heading straight towards A. I like this play from Cincinnati. It'll be 3 up the middle, 2 on the outsides to make sure that nothing gets surrounded. Cincinnati, the opening setup will be good, at least for a start. They will be able to flood back into this, and this is why I like this setup a lot, is you do have the ability to delay push. Hildy will find 2 to clutch things up. Now he does the exact right thing. You push forward, you take away map control, and you force Butler to rotate awkwardly to both of these hard points.
One thing to note, Slash and Knives was able to pick up that lightning strike, and he might opt to just call it in, try to clear these back steps and capture B early in this round.
Let's see what happens from here, Butler. Taking a little bit of a split approach here, just trying to test the waters from both sides, and the waters will come back a little bit hot as they will try to flood into A for a small time. But again, Hildy from the vent will find 1. Trying to contest up close was Unshocked that he'll come through those double doors and push back everybody from Butler. So far, Cincinnati doing a good job. No progress being made anywhere as everything gets depleted. Now it will be Butler trying to once again hit from the front. But again, look at Slash and Knives. He's all the way up front by himself. He's waiting for his teammates. That's very smart. So he's got support from behind, plus 1 more holding down his window. And it just comes down to taking care of this player on the flank. That's Hildy. That was a very good approach for Butler. War Machine also being used to make sure they grant this point, but don't know necessarily if it was 100% needed, considering they had the numbers as it was, but they still have plenty of rounds to go with this War Machine. They could use it to break open this point at B as well.
Yeah, and if you're Cincinnati, you just got to chalk it up. Hensley is going to pick up that lightning strike as well and is 100 points off. I don't know how much longer to be able to hold on to the War Machine and potentially get streaks, but still, 1 kill for Hensley could drastically change this entire game up.
Hensley will run out of the War Machine charge. You see just left to hold on here at B. It is one of the more favorable spots to hold because of the proximity of the spawns, plus the very clear-cut paths that the offense has to take. Mark will find one. Slash and Knives waiting for this lightning strike, and then he's going to hit the lobby. Able to find two with it. This is a good opportunity now for Butler to push on through, and look at that kill feed. It's all blue. Just comes down to Hildy. He cannot contest, though. He has to wait for teammates to get here. Him and Mark, though, will fall. So now the second tick of progress very likely will come through as Butler has the numbers. Again, staggered hits coming from Cincinnati. Zero patience from this defensive side. And now Butler are looking to put themselves in a very good spot to be up 2-0, and they sure will. Again, Cincinnati, it's hard sometimes when you're that one player sitting close by and you see the progress coming through and you feel like you have to contest, but when there's no teammates to support you, you're essentially just throwing away life and extra time to contest. So that will be Butler taking the 2-0 lead.
That's a textbook play, in my opinion, out of Slash and Knives. He calls in the lightning strike, but he only does so when he knows his team is in a position to make a play on the objective. Instead of just calling it and maybe get a couple of kills, he calls it in, gets the kills, backsteps, but he does that while his team is pushing up towards that jet statue. He gets control for his team and the two-man life advantage in the team fight, essentially giving Butler the point control almost for free.
More importantly, though, for Butler, they still have a score streak to work with. Lightning strike for Hensley online, ready to go. And Butler will be rolling out 4 players to A, 1 just lingering by B, and the opening gunfights will be happening pillar to pillar through this weapons testing bay, and all of it is going Cincinnati's way, and this is exactly what you need to start to bounce back. Here's the big thing again, the specialists charging so slowly, you would love to get somebody's score streaks to try to counter out what Hensley has. Closest to that would potentially be Mark, who's sitting on 3 straight this life. Capture zone comes through very quickly with a 4-life lead. Sir Aaron is here, but he's not able to finish off anybody. So now all of a sudden, Cincinnati with the chance to actually spawn camp a little bit and extend their lead in the life department. They still have not had a single death yet.
Yeah, and that's huge for Cincinnati. Get the A cap so quickly, and Slash and Knives just trying to contest for this B hill. Clears out Cincinnati, but still, these 3 players hitting the back are going to drastically affect the way Butler is spawning, and Markler just needed to stay alive just a little bit longer. He was 150 off of that lightning strike still. Unshot does pick up his gravity slam. But
mistakes, honestly. You have to stay alive there. You have to stay alive if you're Mark. You need to get those streaks back in hand. Maybe you don't know that Hensley has streaks themselves, but if you want to make the comeback down 2 rounds, you need to have those score streaks. So I'm definitely not so sure about that play. Yasmino, again, just having a hard time winning a gunfight face-up. He's 5-9 flat out, and he is not able to win that fight there, even though he's got first shots onto Vortex. So all of a sudden, Butler able to narrow down that life lead, which was sitting at 6, just down to 2. 0 progress been made whatsoever for Cincinnati. And again, this point, you have to be able to hit together and actually wipe. You cannot just allow trades to come through. Tempest will be popped. For Vortex, he's going to hit 1 and actually chains onto another. Yasmino will find 2, but he falls immediately afterwards. And again, it just comes down to all of this pressure from Butler is just so good defensively at the moment.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm really impressed with so far is Butler's defense. Both the first round and this round 3, Cincinnati's gotten the A point pretty early, and they just had a lot of time to try to push this B point. In both rounds, Butler's been able to not only successfully hold the defense, but get a life lead back in their favor, as well as make some smart tactical plays by pushing up and making sure they're getting the kills needed.
And the biggest thing is, even though they're not able to win out a lot of those fights, they kill a lot of time on the clock. So Hildy will be able to jump on after he gets 2 to get into the hill and try to contest for a small time. Actually, progress is being made, but it's short-lived as Butler is able to fight on back. Lightning strike to secure the second push. All 5 players are now here to defend, and you have to figure that the hopes and dreams of Cincinnati walking away with a 3-0 will be dashed away. Sir Aaron with a nice easy grav slam for 2. And Butler will find themselves a 3-0 here on Arsenal Control. A much-needed, obviously, round as they were already down 2 maps to 1, but they will see a map 4 live to fight another day here.
That was a pretty clean Arsenal Control, if I do say so myself. One thing to note, as I said, Butler's defense looked great, but in that second round, they're able to get things going on the offense, just throw a couple of different looks at Cincinnati, throw them off their game just a little bit and send it to a map 4.
Very clean and polished play indeed. Definitely a different look than what we saw on the Search and Destroy. And honestly, the Hardpoint was really pretty sloppy as well. That was an interesting play of the game.
Really was.
Being mostly tacit with Unshot for most of the time, but Yeah, like you said, we'll be heading to map 4, and this is, a situation where you start to take a look at what will potentially happen in the future here. Seaside, I believe, is where our next hard point is here, J-Pros. And
It is Seaside indeed.
This is not the greatest of maps for Butler when it comes to their hard point record. And it will be interesting to see how this ends up playing out because of it. But it's, it's a different look here because, again, last time Cincinnati played Butler earlier this season, it was a 3-0 for Cincinnati. So I guess you could say a little bit of improvement here from Butler in terms of being able to play their opponents closer. Obviously going 3-1, but that control was, I would say, you'd be mostly surprised to hear that it was a 3-0 last time that these two teams played based on what we just saw at Butler. It's very clear control play.
Yeah, one thing to note, Haddensley, 33 and 11, 4.3k damage for the team. Really had the most damage in the lobby by almost 1,000. The closest was Vortex at 3,400, so Hensley putting in the work. Hopefully he's able to carry that momentum on over into that Seaside hardpoint. Now, we talk about Seaside a lot as being one of the crazier hardpoint maps, I would say. I don't even think crazy cuts it like it is.
Yeah, that's definitely not enough credit given to Seaside. This is a map that is as equivalent to the Wild West as you'll ever see. But yeah, it's an interesting one, right? Because, the ICRs do not come into play on a map like this. You see a lot more pressure being kind of facilitated by the SOGs, the SMG line. And again, you take a look at just the lineups head-to-head, you would think that Butler should have a pretty decent shot of making those SOGs come to life, but again, Cincinnati has looked really solid when it comes to their hardpoint play, just in the history of their season 1 so far. So again, for Butler, this is a tough map to continue to go through if you're trying to make this reverse sweep happen.
Yeah, I mean, Seaside, essentially you have to get the ball rolling pretty quickly. Even at the end, if you can get things, go and chain a couple of things together, get that nice rotation from first to second to third. I don't know. After the way we saw that first hardpoint go, it could have gone either way. Seaside, a totally different beast entirely. I'm not sure what to think about this one, if I'm going to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's tough to make a prediction, right? I mean, it just comes down to, what the action actually turns out to be. Simply due to the fact that the first hardpoint was so close and so gritty between both of these teams. It'll be interesting to take a look to see if there will be any more polish on a more hectic map like Seaside, as it is a very hectic map, like we mentioned. So as we will be getting ready to dig in here again for Butler, you need to polish things up, I would say, specifically on timing your rotations. We saw them hitting some unfavorable hills late with the time bank left, which did allow them, or essentially allowed Cincinnati to string together a couple hills. It's a little bit more forgiving on a map like Arsenal versus stringing together a couple of hills on a map like Seaside, which those choke points become super, super hard to break. And more specifically, being able to break the spawns as well becomes that much more of a trying task.
Yeah, one thing to note, this was Butler's hardpoint pick. Arsenal was Cincinnati's pick, so...
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was also an interesting pick out of them, as the map's going to be starting up here in 3 seconds. Butler, maybe they've been working on this map. Maybe they think this is it. But I guess we're going to find out here in the Seaside hardpoint.
We shall see what happens. The mad dash to the point. Slash and Knives will actually pull out the ICR and sit on the red roofs to start things off and lock down the outer areas. But there is no pressure being put out there. Everything's coming through the middle and down low. And you see those Sogs and Maddox is coming into play. They have the extra player involved, so the gunfight goes in their favor, and they find early control. Nice little foot shots from Slash and Knives, but again, he's going to have a hard time with this ICR being super effective.
That quite honestly might be the weirdest break I've seen on Seaside. It seemed like Butler just kind of played their side instead of sliding out like most teams opt to do. Either way, Cincinnati gets it done in the end, and Butler only able to pick up 1 point. They really need this rotation, and Johnny Ice, one of their last hopes, and maybe getting an early rotation.
Yeah, and this is... For Butler, you have the numbers up front, at least you did, but now you have to play out your lives, because there's only 2 of you here, and the spawns are in favor of Cincinnati, so they will be coming through very quickly. Vortex is here, and all of a sudden, actually, that will spawn Hensley close, and Cincinnati out. So for Butler, now that you get the information that you actually granted up the spawns for a couple of players, you need to start getting aggressive, and they absolutely will. They'll win out the church as well as the courtyard, so Cincinnati are forced to spawn all the way back by Fountain, and now Butler are in control, but I don't think they realize how much control they have. As you can see, one player is still watching the back. They didn't lock down spawns, as now Cincinnati is hitting, and they spawn close. So again, just mismanagement of the anchor position for both teams, honestly. Fortunately for UC, they're able to break through and find a clean wipe. So with 23 seconds left, that just comes down to now you have to push through, see if you can win a couple of fights over the middle, and force Butler to spawn behind. That's exactly what's happening. As you see, 2 players in blue will now make that 3. Will spawn in the back. Full scrap time will be going over to Cincinnati, with the exception of this last little hit from Yasmino trying to play defense in that back end. He will win 1, but not the 2nd. But the big fight and the actual spawn that matters will go the way of Cincinnati. So now all of a sudden, like you mentioned, able to string together 2 straight hard points.
Yeah, and it's clearly showing Cincinnati going to be about 30 points here, holding off the chokes for this map, especially Hensley does pick up a nice kill. Does it cut down as Mark Lauren finds 2 for himself. Realistically, we see the comeback start to happen on that first kill, rotating the 2nd and 3rd. But right now, if you're Cincinnati, you got to be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, you have to be feeling very good, and it's going to be very difficult again. No score streaks available for Butler, and specialists are not going to be there for a little bit longer than usual. So the timing and pacing of this game will stay in Cincinnati's favor as long as they are able to manage this next rotation as well. Butler is being very apprehensive of how they want to go into this next area, and they get traded. Hensley also getting taken down by Mark. One more player here is Sir Aaron, and he's not quite able to finish off the player in front. Mark will turn around and unfortunately take down a teammate, but again, Cincinnati quick on the rip to get to this next hard point. They are in a great position to start to contest this. Even winning one more little 180 turn is King Ray before the rest of Butler starts to come through, meaning that Cincinnati again still has numbers to hit this if they want.
Seaside gives and Seaside takes. Butler looked like they were going to have the early rotation to barrels. Gets cut down in a couple of gunfights near that orange connector. Cincinnati just seems to be playing the Seaside right now.
Yeah, very, very correctly, I would say. Butler, though, is in control of the hill at the moment as Cincinnati's spawning out by Fish Market. So this comes down to taking care of Yasmino. What are you doing trying to challenge that 1v4? You just essentially threw away a bunch of time. Play your life out, my friends. Play your life out. That's the only thing you have to do. Just wait. Wait for your teammates. What are you doing challenging 1v4? Do you really think you're going to win that fight? The answer will almost always be no. So now all of a sudden, Mark, who was in a position to maybe actually set up a pinch, will have to be forced back. So now Butler, with a lot of free time given to them, will now look to rotate. They've got a pretty interesting little surround here towards this Fish Market, although Hensley does get taken down. Aaron from the stairs also taken care of, and Yasmino will make up for his transgressions in the last hill by finding 2 before he falls.
Yeah, and this rotation's so tough. King Ray finds 2 with that Maddox over in the middle. Cincinnati just doing an excellent job so far of holding on to this first hill. And even though they don't have the preferred spawns for new, it's just so difficult for Butler to even get close to the hill.
Yeah, this is the power position that Seaside brings. Like you mentioned, Seaside giveth, Seaside taketh away. And for now, Cincinnati is taking all of the points they can. One more hit from Butler coming down the main stairs. They are setting up 2 players to move over towards the middle portion of the map, but they're not even winning the upfront fights as Mark is able to take down 2, which actually forces Vortex to rotate over. And again, what this means is that with Vortex rotating over, sure, you get some of the scrap time, but you had 2 teammates spawning behind you anyways. You just essentially meant that you forced your own team to spawn further out, which gives Cincinnati a chance to respawn and set themselves up defensively. They're fine giving away 12 seconds to open up this point in their favor and hold on to spawns. Look at this, Unshocked is kind of learning from his positioning from last time. He's further back, holding down the spawns, playing the anchor. He's got teammates spawning next to him, so he knows he's doing his job successfully. He's just got to trust his friends up front to win the fights, which unfortunately they were not able to do for long enough.
Yeah, and as we're seeing specialists start to come online, Vortex is going to have that Tempest. King Ray has his as well. But Mark Lauren opting to go for the Fire Break, as well as Slash and Knives did. I really like the Fire Break pick on this map. A lot of these hills, especially the Barrels Mill, and Mark Lauren's going to call it in. Maybe a little bit prematurely, but he does find 2, so I suppose.
Guess a little bit of silver linings. The Purifier will be lit up, and I don't really know if I agree with the call to utilize it at this stage. I would have rather him used it in the barrels coming forward, as he's just going to get a chance to take down 1 more with this, and that'll be the end of that specialist. But now the War Machine also being utilized for Hildy. We'll throw some shots overhead of the fountain, actually a couple deeper towards the spawn, just to make sure that Butler doesn't spawn up here. And again, good positioning from Cincinnati as they went out the back, no problem. Johnny Ice isn't quite able to lock down the spawns that were needed, so Butler will spawn all the way on the other side of the map. meaning that Cincinnati will again get a lot of free time, and I don't really know what this hit was from Butler. They send them one by one up the orange staircase. All of them fall. This was just a disjointed attack from Butler, and Cincinnati will punish.
Mark Lauren able to pick up 2 streaks for himself. I hear the temp is being popped by King Ray. Only finds 1, but I don't really think it matters in this situation. Cincinnati gets a couple of streaks, works towards some more specialist progression. Mark Lauren does call in that Hellstorm. Gets a team kill. Not really what you're looking for in that situation, but Cincinnati gets that 15 seconds. And hopefully the rotation towards barrels.
Hopefully, and it looks like should be, as you see them rotating from the fish market spawns. They have an opportunity to set up a pinch here, as you can see Butler will actually be spawning old, and the information is going to be given here by Yasmino, who was the last player there, but unfortunately for Cincinnati, they weren't able to quite circle in time, so they will be forced to try to hit off their second respawn, which will be coming from the tank side of the map. Mark able to open things up with 1. You've got a grab slam here. Do you potentially use this if you're Sir Aaron?
Oh.
Yeah, this would be the time. He does. Did he even try to trigger it? It looked like he may have tried to go for it. And yeah, he loses half of his charge for it. Just a little bit unconvincing as far as wanting to hit the trigger or not. Cincinnati will break because of it, and they will put themselves within win condition on this hill.
And if you're Hensley right now, I honestly think you have to call in the War Machine. However, he does see that there is a trophy in the hill, so maybe not. I don't know. This is such a tough situation for Hensley because Cincinnati can win off of this hill, but at the same time, you need to try to wait for your team instead of just solo hitting it.
He's able to at least clean up 2, though, so the heroics coming into play. Hensley does do that time and time again. But now it comes down to Vortex. He's got to be the hero on this rotation. He does not win the first fight. Now it's up to Slash and Knives. You have to get here. You cannot allow too much time to go through, but you have to be very diligent about how you do this. Slash and able to win 1. Lightning Strike being used. Bark does find 2 with it. Slash and Knives, last player left in the hill. Cincinnati have got win condition in front of them. They're totaling up to 244. Unshocked, though, takes down 2 teammates with the grab slam. But unfortunately, Hensley finds a teammate of his own with the War Machine. This is what we're talking about when we said that it was sloppy gameplay. That is the exact case and scenario. Exhibit A being put on display for the courtroom, as UC will now finally flood back through with the spawns, leaving Johnny Ice to contest. Will not be able to do so. Cincinnati will get the W, but again, it was not what I would consider to be clean, but it was apparently clean enough.
Butler just starts rotating there at the end when they realize that Cincinnati is so close and they break back in. It's like a oh crap moment. We have to try to rotate back and get back into the hill, and at that point, it's just too late for Butler to do anything, and Cincinnati had already won the game.
Tough looks.
Tough looks indeed.
The biggest thing, for Butler, you have to make a lot of improvements, honestly. I mean, before you get into the play-ins, I think there was a lot of instances where, really for both teams, it's one of those things that they weren't really doing a great job of just anchoring. It just comes down to basic mechanics that we're talking about for ULL. I mean, you have to be able to rotate. You have to be able to anchor properly. And both teams kind of showcasing instances where that was not the case. Again, it's one thing to talk about a perfect game. It's another to try to do it. But for Cincinnati and Butler both, there are definitely a lot of things you could look back on and say, okay, we can clean up this very easily. It's not like there are unachievable improvements that can be made within a week's time. These are all things that you can go back and say, all right, well, I just didn't stand close enough to the spawns to lock down the spawns, or we hit this with 15 seconds left. We should have just rotated to the next hill. Those are really easy things that you can look at and say, okay, easy improvements there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing if either of these teams will be able to do so. Again, we are kind of in a weird time for the actual collegiate schedule too, as far as like actual student responsibilities. But you would hope that going into play-ins this weekend that both teams will be able to look back on this game and pick apart a couple instances, not only on Hardpoint, but also on the Search and Destroy and the Control, where they're able to essentially just be able to clean things up very quickly. I
absolutely agree with you. A lot of the things that Butler were having, a couple issues with, a lot of very easily fixable mistakes. I think that's the silver lining. You're going to get the 4th seed. You're going to have probably a little bit of a tougher situation going into the play-in, potentially the playoff if you get that far. But I think a lot of the situations are easily fixable for this team. So they go back, just take a quick gander, recognize the situation around them, realizing, this player's here, we should have been doing, X, Y, Z and whatnot. Butler definitely looked pretty good in that Control. That first hard point maybe could have gone their way, but still, Cincinnati at the end of the day gets it done on maybe not the cleanest 3-1, but a victory is a victory.
Victory is a victory, and one that matters for placements, like we said. So it will be Cincinnati taking care of the third place position so far in the Midwest. Butler slipping down to the fourth. Both teams were tied going into it. So now as we try to finish off these weeks, I think these teams still have maybe a couple games left to finish out. Maybe I'm mistaken in that instance, but I thought I saw that they had a couple more games left to play, but I could be completely wrong. I'm trying to go back to the team schedules to see if there were more games that either had to play. But even still, being able to have now Cincinnati is up 2-0 on Butler is definitely feels good as far as you being in that third spot, at least at the moment, like we mentioned. So for Cincinnati, you'd be feeling a little bit more confident about the rest of your potential chances to make a run into playoffs. But for Butler, not being able to beat the number 3 team in your division definitely leaves a lot of question marks lingering for how do you take on the number 4, number 3 teams in a little bit more difficult divisions as well.
Back to the drawing board for a lot of these teams. I think going into the play, and a lot of these teams got to recognize, here's what we do a lot. Here's what we need to fix. It really comes down to whether or not the teams put in the time and the effort to go far into the playoffs. The teams that put in the time, they watch the VODs, they sit in a custom lobby and like, all right, here's where we should be, here's what our setup should look like. It's those teams that are going to find the most success in playoffs.
Yeah, 100%. And again, that's what we're working towards. Play-in bracket this weekend. We still have another stream coming up though on Thursday. But for tonight, that's going to be it for us. For J-Pros and myself, I hold shift. We'll catch you guys on Thursday. Until then, hope you guys all keep holding it down. So long.
I'm telling